If you think the scariest things only happen in horror movies, let me stop you right there. Because the stories you're about to hear weren't written by screenwriters. They weren't staged. They weren't imagined in the dark. They were lived. Tonight isn't about ghosts jumping out of closets. It's about real people, on normal nights, doing normal things, until reality quietly bends in a way that never fully bends back. These are the kinds of stories that crawl under your skin while you're trying to sleep. The kind that make you replay ordinary moments and ask yourself, was I actually safe back then? Or did I just get lucky? And the first one starts on a road so dark and ordinary that you've probably driven one just like it. Imagine driving alone at night, windows down, music playing, and then something forces you to slam on the brakes. Not an animal, not a broken down car, a family, standing in the middle of the road. This happened around 2018 or 2019. The woman telling this story was 18 or 19 at the time, living in Nebraska, in one of those cities that technically counts as a city, but still feels like it's surrounded by nothing but fields, corn, wheat, and long stretches of silence. As the city expanded, wealthy families started building massive homes on the outskirts. Huge properties, long driveways, miles between neighbors. One of her close friends lived in one of those houses, right where the city faded into farmland. It became the hangout spot. There were ATVs, a hot tub, a massive living room perfect for sports and binge, watching trash reality TV. And best of all, the parents were chill. As long as everyone stayed the night, drinking was allowed. It should have felt safe, but it never really did. She hated the dark, always had. Once the sun went down, she refused to step outside. There were barely any lights, and the closest neighbor was nearly a mile away. And every time she drove to or from that house late at night, she felt it. That pressure in your chest you can't explain. That feeling like the road is watching you back. Nothing ever happened. Until one night. It was spring. Perfect weather. Around 10 p.m., she was driving with her windows down, music playing softly, taking the long winding road back toward the city. This road twisted through dense trees on both sides. No traffic. Very little lighting. And halfway through, it passed one of the largest cemeteries in the city. She admits now, she usually sped through that part. This night was no different, until she rounded one of the curves and slammed on her brakes. Right there, about 50 yards ahead, in the middle of the roadway, as a family. 3, maybe 4 people. A tall, slim woman, an average-built man, a child about 8 years old, and a stroller. They were walking away from her, in complete silence, down a pitch, black road, with no flashlight, no phone lights, no reflective clothing. Just walking, in the middle of the street. Her headlights were the only thing illuminating them. She turned her music down, trying to hear anything. Voices, footsteps, anything, nothing. No talking, no reaction. She stopped her car completely, waiting for them to move aside. They didn't. They didn't turn their heads. They didn't flinch. They didn't acknowledge the car behind them at all. Her arms prickled with goosebumps. She genuinely wondered if she was dreaming. And then, all at once, they stopped walking. And slowly, too slowly, they turned around to face her car. She doesn't remember their faces. Not really. Because the second they started turning, panic took over. She threw her car into reverse and floored it, speeding backward for what felt like forever. Nearly drove off the road trying to get enough space to turn around. She flipped a U-turn and took off in the opposite direction as fast as she could. Heart pounding. Hands shaking. She checked her rearview mirror over and over. Nothing. No figures. No silhouettes. No movement. Just empty road. But one detail burned into her memory. The stroller. It was empty. She made it to a main road and finally slowed down, trying to breathe. Trying to rationalize what she'd just seen. She asked her friend about it later. Asked his parents too. The way they looked at her made her feel insane, like she was describing something impossible. Every time she tells this story, people react the same way. They think she imagined it. They think she's lying. Or they go quiet and admit something similar happened to them once. She doesn't care if anyone believes her anymore, because she knows what she felt. Pure terror. To this day, she thinks about it constantly. Was it just a strange family trying to scare someone? A setup for something worse, or something far more sinister? She tells herself it was the harmless explanation, because the alternative is too disturbing to live with. It's 11:15 p.m. Someone knocks on your door, and the first thing they say is, "You dropped your wallet." But your wallet is already inside the house. This happened when the woman telling this story was 19 years old. She lived with her mom in a small ranch-style house. Behind their home was a massive open field. On the other side of that field, a main highway. To one side of the house lived a strange, reclusive farmer. About a mile in the other direction sat a run-down house that everyone knew was full of drug activity. Other than that, they were completely isolated. She worked full-time, went to school full-time. One of her classes ended at 10:30 p.m. On those nights, she usually didn't get home until around 11:15, and that's when it happened. She was driving home one night when she noticed a man walking along the road. That wasn't unusual. People often wandered that stretch because of the drug house nearby. But something made her look twice. He was wearing a bright yellow shirt and track pants. A ridiculous outfit for that time of night. As she drove past, he turned, smiled, and waved. That wave sent a chill straight through her. She sped the remaining half-mile home and pulled into the driveway, heart racing. Inside, she locked every door, checked the windows, then sat on the couch, staring toward the front of the house. She told herself she was overreacting. She just wanted to see him walk past the house and disappear down the road, but he didn't. Instead, she saw two figures outside, the man in yellow and another man dressed in dark clothing. They walked straight up her driveway. They went to her car first, testing the handles, pulling gently, checking. Her stomach dropped. In her rush to get inside, she'd forgotten her phone in the car. That's when the man in yellow started walking toward the front door. She panicked and ran to wake her mom. Barely awake, confused, her mom tried to understand what was happening. And then, they both heard it. The doorknob turning, slowly. Thank God for the deadbolt. Her mom got out of bed and walked to the door just as the man knocked. The porch light flicked on, triggered by motion. From the couch, the daughter could see everything. The man stood there smiling. Behind him, his friend waited near the car. Her mom opened the door just enough to speak. The man said calmly, "You dropped your wallet." Her daughter immediately whispered that her wallet was in her purse. Right there, inside the house. Her mom told him exactly that. That her daughter had her wallet, and that it was far too late to be knocking on people's doors. The man paused, then said something that still echoes in her head years later. "Okay, I'm not a bad guy. Just so you know." No one moved. Not her mom, not the daughter, not the man at the door. Then the porch light turned off, and in the darkness, he tried the handle again. That's when her mom told her to call the police. Her mom went to grab her gun. Her daughter grabbed the phone and started explaining everything to the dispatcher. Two suspicious men, trying to get inside the house. And then her mom came back into the room. Her voice was calm. Too calm. "There's one in the backyard too." The dispatcher stayed on the line as her mom went back to the door, gun in hand, and she shouted something she later admitted she didn't even think through. "If you try that handle again, I'm opening the door and shooting you." Silence. Then footsteps, running. Both men bolted down the road in the direction of the drug house. Moments later, the police arrived. They searched the house, the yard, then went straight to the rundown house nearby. Inside, they found 5 men hanging around, one of them wearing a yellow shirt. They were arrested. Nothing like that ever happened again. But the damage was done. Years later, she still checks every lock, every door, every night, because she knows one thing for certain. If her mom hadn't been home, if that door hadn't been deadbolted, she would have become a missing person. And yet somehow, the next story is even worse. Because this time, there's no house, no locked door, no second person nearby. Just a woman walking alone at night, and a van that refuses to leave her alone. She wasn't scared at first. She'd dealt with creeps before. But this time, the van didn't stop circling. She was 26 years old, 5'5", bleach blonde hair, curvy build. That night, she was wearing black high-waisted tights and a pink crop top. Nothing outrageous. Nothing unusual. She was walking home late from a friend's place, through a rough part of a large city. An area where sketchy things happened often enough that you learned to stay alert, or get hurt. She'd been followed before. Catcalled. Propositioned. So when she noticed a van slow down near her, she felt annoyed more than afraid. She kept walking. At first, it stayed behind her. Then it pulled up alongside her. She didn't even look at it. She crossed the street, putting traffic between herself and the van, a move she'd perfected over time. Usually, that worked. This time it didn't. The van turned down a side street, then, moments later, came back onto the road ahead of her. It slowed again. Still, she wasn't scared. This kind of thing happened constantly in her neighborhood. She stopped walking and said firmly, "I'm not interested." That's when she finally looked inside. There were 2 men in the van. They looked almost identical. Same dark complexion, same short dark hair, same empty, unblinking stare. Twins or brothers. The van didn't move. She crossed the street again. They followed. She crossed back. They followed again. Now her stomach tightened. This wasn't persistence. This was coordination. She yelled at them to fove off as they sped past her with traffic. Finally, the van disappeared. She stood there, breathing hard. 3 minutes passed. No van. She pulled out her phone, ready to call her sister, just in case. That's when the van reappeared. Fast. Too fast. It screeched to a stop right beside her. Before she could react, the back door flew open. One of the men jumped out. He moved toward her quickly, aggressively, like he was about to grab her and throw her inside. There was no traffic, no witnesses. This was the moment they'd been waiting for. Her brain screamed at her to run, but she knew she wouldn't make it. So she did the only thing she could think of. She raised her phone and lied. She tilted it toward his face and said, loud and clear, "You're being filmed on my live video chat. I gave my friends your license plate number. The police have been notified." She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She forced herself to sound calm, confident. The man froze. For a split second, she saw him calculate. Was she bluffing? Was it worth the risk? She tilted the phone again, like she was adjusting the angle for her audience. That was enough. He jumped back into the van. The door slammed shut. They sped away. She stood there shaking, realizing something terrifying. If she hadn't thought fast enough, if she hadn't said the right words, she would have disappeared. She's never been the same since. She doesn't walk alone anymore. Not at night. Not even during the day. Because once you see how close you were to being taken, you never forget. She was only 15, alone in a parking lot, and a man asked her one simple question. "Can you help me for a second?" This happened in the late 1970s. She was a teenager, out shopping with her dad. Nothing unusual. Just errands on a normal afternoon. At one point, her father went back inside the store to return something. She stayed behind, leaning against the car, waiting. That's when a man approached her. He looked ordinary, middle-aged, well-dressed, polite, not threatening, not aggressive. The kind of man your brain automatically labels as safe. He smiled and said he was having trouble with his car. Something about it not starting. Then he asked her if she could come over and help him for a moment. She hesitated, but only slightly. Back then, people trusted strangers more. And he didn't raise his voice, didn't rush her. He was calm, friendly. She took a step toward him, and then she saw her father, still inside the store, looking directly at her. He didn't wave, didn't shout. He just shook his head, slowly, deliberately. No. Something in his eyes made her stop immediately. She froze. The man noticed. His smile tightened. He followed her gaze toward the store, saw her father, and just like that, his entire demeanor changed. No anger, no argument. He simply nodded once, turned around, and walked away. Her father came outside moments later. She told him what happened. He didn't brush it off, didn't joke. He was shaken. Years passed. Life moved on. The memory faded into the background of her mind, until one night, she was watching the news, and her stomach dropped, because the face on the screen was the same man. He had been arrested, exposed, identified as a serial killer, a man responsible for abducting and murdering multiple young women. His method: parking lots, broken car stories, asking for help, targeting teenage girls, girls who trusted him, girls whose parents weren't watching. She realized something that still haunts her. If her father had stayed inside for 30 seconds longer, if he hadn't looked up at that exact moment, she would have gone with him, and she would never have come back. That's the terrifying truth about predators. They don't always look dangerous. They don't always act suspicious. Sometimes they look like normal people, asking for help. She kept waking up tired. Her food was disappearing, and something in the house felt off. But the truth was worse than anything she imagined. She lived alone in a small 2-story house. Nothing fancy. Quiet neighborhood. The kind of place where nothing ever happened. At first, it was small things. Food going missing from the fridge. Lights left on that she swore she'd turned off. Doors unlocked in the morning. She blamed herself. Stress. Long work hours. Being forgetful. Then the dream started. She kept dreaming that someone was standing at the foot of her bed, watching her. Not moving. Just breathing. She'd wake up drenched in sweat, heart pounding, and the room would be empty. Every time. One night, she decided to test herself. Before bed, she took photos of every room on her phone. The kitchen, the living room, the hallway. Everything exactly how she left it. She locked all the doors. Checked the windows. Then she went to sleep. In the morning, she compared the photos. Her stomach dropped. A chair in the kitchen had been moved. Not much. Just enough to prove she wasn't imagining things. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat in bed with the lights off, phone in hand, listening. At 3:17 a.m. she heard it. A soft creak, footsteps. Slow, careful. Coming from upstairs. Her breath stopped. She didn't move. Didn't even blink. The steps reached the doorway. And then, a shadow crossed the wall. Someone was standing there, watching her. She called 911 without speaking. Left the line open. Her heart felt like it was going to explode out of her chest. Minutes passed like hours. Then, the shadow moved. Footsteps retreated. Fast. Too fast. Police arrived within minutes. They searched the house. Every room. Every closet. Every crawl space. Then one officer called out from the attic. They found a makeshift bed. Food wrappers. Empty bottles. Someone had been living there. For weeks. The police never caught him. But they confirmed something that made her blood run cold. He had access to the attic crawl space, directly above her bedroom. Meaning every night, he could see her, sleeping. Unaware. She moved out the next day. Left almost everything behind. To this day, she sleeps with the lights on. Because once you realize someone watched you sleep, you never feel alone again. Female war ing. Every story you just heard had one thing in common. The victim sensed something was wrong. That feeling in your chest. That hesitation. That quiet voice telling you this isn't right. That's not fear. That's instinct, and it exists to keep you alive. So if something feels off, don't be polite. Don't second guess yourself. Don't ignore it. Because the people in these stories survived by seconds, by instincts, by luck. And many others didn't.